Look at the mess you made. Welcome to Derry, episode 2. The Thing in the Dark dives deeper into what happened in the fictitious town of Derry, Maine, where you can always smell that dairy air. And we see how the citizens basically came to understand fear and sometimes just flat out ignore it. The children couldn't because the children were always targeted, but we get a few more details about some particular characters. Ronnie, Lily, a little bit more of Marge, but mainly Hanlon, because we're going full. The military thinks that they can control something that they are absolutely not qualified to control, and it's going to bite them in the proverbial ass, every single goddamn ass. So much ass, even the Human Centipede trilogy is going to say, well, that's a bit too much ass. So, when we last left our living intrepid heroes, the theater was a complete bloodbath. And now the police are trying to pin this shit on Hank, even though Hank had nothing to do with it. But his daughter was there, and boy, they really did some good casting here. They really did. The ones that played the kids, fucking kids, teens, whatever, fucking terrific. So I did like how they kept having the subtle theme of turtles. That was something that was referenced in episode 1 that I may have glossed over, and that's also something they show in a little bit of, jewelry here. Nice little nod to the Stephen King book. And we get recaps of, what happened in episode 1 and different perspectives of 3 children being slaughtered in the goddamn theater. Really good stuff there. It subverted expectations because I actually expected all those kids to make it, at least for a while. But oh boy, you proved me wrong. A Smile on a Ribbon by Patience and Prudence. Really good. Really good, animated intro showing various things are going to happen, such as a child looking in a sewer, and a priest on fire, and a weird bunny costume, and just a lot of shit that's going to happen in Derry. Probably bringing the city to a smoking luau cinder before it's rebuilt. But really great inclusion of the song there, so right off to the races. We have a couple cops that are dealing with the aftermath of the theater massacre. One seems to think that, Hank has something to do with it. The other, not so much. The theme of racism actually is scarier than anything that involves Pennywise, a dancing clown. We find out more about Ronnie's home life and also Hank just trying to make do. A little more with the grandma. The grandma wants to try to talk Ronnie into going to school. Channeling shit that's going on, with integration in schools, even though it should have never been a fucking issue. But of course, we as white people just can't understand anybody that's different from us. I say this as somebody, by the way, and I will fully admit it right here, because I learned how to take views that were, basically that influenced me, shall we say, from an early age, and push those to the side. You can change how you view people. You really fucking can, especially when it comes down to race and their sexuality and stuff like that. You can change that. And a lot of this did remind me of stuff I've heard and also stuff that I've seen. And they cut out certain words, I will say that much, which is a good thing, which actually somehow makes it scarier. It's not going for the cheap heat. It is going simply to frighten people, especially those that have dealt with racism. So the grandmother wants Ronnie to go to school. And yeah, we find out more about Hank. We go back to Hanlon, rather. We see his son, Will, and wife, Charlotte, arrive. Will is into science, has a telescope, that kind of stuff. And then we cut to Margie, whatever you want to say, who, even though she really is friends with Lily and does care, she's trying to fit in way too much. And there are these 3 girls that are kind of like, maybe not even prepubescent, but like early teen versions of, the Mean Girls from Mean Girls, by the way, just in case that wasn't on the nose. Not on Wednesdays do they wear pink, just some of them occasionally do whenever. And I'm thinking that they're either going to imply that that Margie might be, swing both ways, as, some discovered that and everything, because she's a little too attached with trying to impress these girls, and also there's stuff with guys going on. It's really weird stuff. It's dealing with adolescence and everything in a very good way, I will say. And this is coming from somebody, by the way, that has not seen Stranger Things. Not one episode, by the way, because I just didn't want to get into it. Maybe I will watch it at some point. But one of the girls, Elaine, I think she's going to end up being the one of the three that is kind of, like the good, the one that will eventually go good. And Ronnie also arrives at school, but naturally, being, of course, black, she is seen as a pariah. I don't even know what a pariah is. If you get that reference, I love you guys. And principal announcer is going to be a candlelight vigil. Margie talks to Lily. She's worried about her. But she's trying to fit in way too hard. Like, way too hard. And Will is also in this class. Will ends up striking up a friendship with Ronnie a little bit later on. And then we go back to the whole thing where in the first episode, Hanlon was attacked by 3 masked guys. It turns out that Masters had something to do with it. And oh boy, Masters is just in, he's in the like in the holding, shall we say. And, Hanlon recognized the gun that they pulled on him and everything. It was something that was, tied back to, east of Berlin, the way it was like, the style of gun he talked about. But, he's having some questions about that because it seems a little bit odd that gun would have gotten there, but he recognized it from his time in the Korean War. The soundtrack and the score are perfectly on point. Great needle drops. Really enjoyed this stuff. The Paul Bunyan Monument statue. Gee, I wonder if that's going to factor in anything a little bit later. Town folks don't really like it. We have Stanley Cleaver, the meat man, the meat gentleman, as it were. And he seems accepting. Well, welcome to Derry. Charlotte, are you passing through? Oh, you live it. I didn't mean it like that. Trying to be understanding and trying to also realize, they're just humans with different skin tones. That's fine. Then Charlotte sees across the street 3 boys that are beating down a nerdy other boy, and she runs up to him, and these boys just look at her like they are going to chew her apart. And then they chase after the boy again, and nobody stops to do anything. She doesn't understand what the fuck's going on. Why did they let it slide? At dinner with Will and Hanlon, they're talking, and basically, and I keep calling him Hanlon, by the way, because it's a funnier name. It just is. But that being said, they're talking and everything, and Charlotte really wants to stand up for what's right and everything and stop, this stuff, especially, with people being beaten down, people being held down, stuff like that. But Will's like, well, don't embarrass me in my first week of school. Will also got bullied when some kid pulled his chair away and stuff like that. So he's already on the teacher's shit list because, again, you got to stand up, you got to sit up straight, and you got to work twice as hard as a white guy. It's stupid, but that's how they were doing things. That isn't how anything should have been done, but whatever. And then Ronnie is having a nightmare where it almost seems like she's trapped in sheets. Sheets are filled with water. She really wet the bed, but no, it actually is more like a birth canal thing, and she pops out of it, and then suddenly the sheets and the other stuff, form her mother. You tore me apart, Ronnie. All I wanted to do was hold my baby. And, it's like, you killed me just like you killed those kids and just like you're going to kill your dad. There was a chompy vulva for some reason. I don't really know why we did that, but it was a cool effect. And look at the mess you made. So, yeah, that's really not going all that well for Ronnie, but no time for that. We go to Uncle Elmer running the bar. It's not Uncle Elmer, but I just choose to believe that Uncle Elmer, the former wrestler, was running the bar. Actually, he wouldn't have even been a wrestler back in '62, but I digress. The citizens some want Hank arrested because he's black. That's it. That's the only reason. There are 3 black soldiers, including one that's named Dick Halloran. Stop laughing. This is serious. He's Private Dick. Oh, he's Sergeant Dick. He's Corporal Dick. I'm fine. I'm fine. It's not funny. This is a serious episode. Serious episode about Corporal Dick. Moving on. They're in the bar, and yeah, let's just say there's tension, so they decide to leave. They're gonna get drunk on moonshine. And then they get back to the goddamn base, and this one guy's like, well, these three guys are out here, and they say they were all questioned, but whatever. Wait, what's his name? Dick Halloran? Stop snickering, soldier. We're not laughing at the man's name. And there we are. Basically, they are fine because Dick has gifts. The Dick gifts, as it were. And it turns out that actually he's been doing various digging sites because he has the ability of some kind of site where he can search for things, and the military are looking for something and using the gifts of Dick to figure that out. I would call this review Gifts of Dick, but I don't think I can get away with it. So, there was a point where he was sick, feeling sick because of something, and he retched off the goddamn, tower, Rapunzel, and that was right into porridge or applesauce being poured onto a tray. Good shot there. Really appreciate that. So, basically, while Lily and Ronnie are talking about, the stuff that happened in the theater, the girls are playing patty cake, the Mean Girls and Marge. And Lily keeps referencing a place called Juniper, that she doesn't want to go back to, like this Juniper Asylum. She doesn't want to go back there. And she went there clearly after her father was, killed in the pickle accident and stuff like that. More on that here in a minute. And she just doesn't want to go back. So she's not sure what she saw. She knows the dad wasn't there, but she's also trying to protect herself. It's a fucking bullshit thing. But then we see a kid, a nerdy kid, eating an apple turnover and drinking a juice box or drinking something called Rich, like Richie. Gee, I wonder what references we're going to get here. And he's talking to Will. And then we see him, fawning over these girls, including, I believe, Marge. I think it's going to be Rich and Marge and end up together at some point. As first loves will go. But one of the girls was flipping him off. That was actually kind of a neat little touch. And then Ronnie ends up getting in detention because somebody threw a stink bomb at Will's. And then Ronnie also swore in the cafeteria. So that leads to both of them being in detention. And they end up kind of forming a bond and everything. So naturally, I think these two will probably make it at least close. Well, I actually think Ronnie will make it to the end. Maybe. We'll see. But the police are coming for Lily to take her away. Ha ha, ho ho, hee hee. They want to get answers, and they basically want to force a confession of Hank being there or being involved somehow to nail him. Because, by God, we can't do our own police work properly. We have to arrest the black man. Don't clip that. That is from the goddamn show. We see a wall of missing kids, and the chief basically threatens to send her back to the institution unless she does that. So, Hanlon ends up confronting Masters because he realizes, hey, wait a second, I was in Korea, I know about this gun, that was a real expert way of doing things, there's no way you did it. You may be a bigot, but, he left the clip and the gun and everything, and basically grilled him, that kind of stuff, and forced him to where he got the gun, he did this, and he couldn't do it quickly. Now, it's not that he couldn't do it, in a decent amount of time, but not as quick as those guys did. So these guys were fucking experts. And, yeah, it wasn't him. So then we basically find out more about Hanlon. And I do love the guy that played the chief here. Very good character actor, by the way. You'll recognize him from a lot of stuff. So, by the way, soldier, the reason we did this is it was a test. You had a brain injury in Korea, a damaged part of your brain where you don't experience fear. And there's a reason why we want you to not experience fear. We're going to figure, it's like, we need you for this special project. It was a test, and you passed. And, they beat him with a pipe. Well, it wasn't supposed to go down like that. How was it supposed to go down, soldier or chief? All right. So yeah, we just move on by that. By the way, Hank got arrested at this point, so Hank got taken away. That's fucking bullshit. There's no reason to do that stuff, but that's okay. Racism wins in the 60s, am I right? Good thing we got past that stuff now and it's not going on. So that being said, suddenly we go to the grocery store scene that actually was probably one of the highlights for many people of episode 2. Yes, I'm a little late on this, by the way. I've been working. That's why I did the episode 1 review just before this. And that's why you'll see this a little bit after, because I have things to do, like work. I will be watching every single episode live if I get a chance, or live as soon as it goes up. So the grocery store thing, pick your own SpaghettiOs, or pick up your SpaghettiOs, and all this stuff such as Kix tested, kid tested, and dad approved. Who remembers Kix? I liked that cereal when I was a kid. So, nice little scene here where she's basically hearing voices in the PA system and around her, calling her crazy. She needs to go back. You're insane. You're never going to leave this town. You're stuck here. And there's people like, peering around and everything high, like, and shuffling around by her. And she ends up getting closed in by aisleways that actually are, moving along and everything, and shelving that's moving along to box her in. She ends up in an aisle full of pickles. What do you think's going to happen? Sees her dad's head, sees her dad's fingers because he got crushed up in a pickle accident. He's in all these pickles, and she smashes one jar, then other jars start smashing. And she's freaking out because her dad's reforming and coming forward and everything. And then suddenly, it's a nightmare sequence. And she's back in the one smashed jar of pickles that she'll probably have to pay for. That's why the mother sent her back to Juniper, because she didn't want to pay for an extra jar of pickles. Bit mean, but fair, because kids should learn to hold on to their shit. So, yeah, that was actually kind of a nice little scene there. And then it was all in her head, what's in her head. And suddenly we find out about the war room, Operation Percept. Or, I'm going to call it Prospect. I'm going to call it Prosper. There we go. That's even better. They are looking for a weapon hidden under the town of Derry that generates fear. Oh boy, they're going to try to weaponize Pennywise. That's not going to work at all. And yeah, they basically, they're talking about that. We smash cut to Lily being taken by her mother back to Juniper, because why be a parent when you can send your kid away to traumatize them? And then it closes with the digging up of something. It's a vehicle. It's the vehicle from the family from the opening of episode 1 with all the bodies. And I'm sure that everything will work out totally fine. We only have 8 episodes for all the madness to continue. So yeah, there we go. That is episode 2 right there. So let me know what you think of the show so far in the comments. Please like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin. Until we dig up an old ghostly station wagon again, I can speak English, I promise. Happy trails to you.